When a woman disrespects you, she is betting on the fact that you will still be there tomorrow, still answering her calls, still orbiting her life like nothing happened, because in her mind you are too attached, too invested, too afraid to lose her. And that's exactly why she feels safe crossing the line. But the man who truly understands his worth doesn't fight for a seat at a table where his presence is taken for granted. He flips the table entirely. He leaves without warning, without permission, without offering her the closure she thinks she's entitled to. And instead of chasing an apology or a second chance, he invests every ounce of his energy into becoming a man she will never have access to again. And this isn't about playing games or making her jealous. This is about living by the Stoic principle that you control your mind and your actions, nothing else, because the moment you realize you don't need to explain, negotiate, or justify your standards, you stop reacting to disrespect and start building a life where respect is the baseline. And today, I'm going to give you the 5 silent moves that make women regret disrespecting you. Moves that don't require shouting, proving, or begging. Moves that don't just shift the power dynamic in your favor, but completely remove her from the equation. Because when you master these, you're no longer a man trying to win back respect from one woman. You're a man who commands respect from everyone, everywhere. And the beauty of this is that you don't need her to validate you for it to work, because the transformation is for you, the peace is for you, the discipline is for you. And when you start living like that, the regret for her is automatic, inevitable, and permanent. Number 1. Cut off access without warning. When a woman disrespects you, when she tests you and crosses a line that no man with self-respect should allow, you do not lecture her about respect. You do not try to win her back with explanations, and you do not give her a play-by-play of how she messed up. You remove yourself from her world in a way that she can feel, not just hear, because in the moment of disrespect, she has already made a decision about what she thinks you are worth. And the more you try to debate that, the more you cement her perception that you are a man who will fight for a position in her life, even after she's made it clear she doesn't value it. So you cut off access without warning, not as a game, not as a tantrum, but as a principle, as an immediate recalibration of the access she had to your presence, your time, your attention, your voice, your energy. And you do it so sharply that it leaves her in a vacuum she wasn't prepared for. Because up until now, she has probably built her behavior on the assumption that no matter what she says or does, you will still pick up her call, you will still respond to her messages, you will still be there in the background, a safety net she didn't earn. And when you take that away abruptly, without the courtesy of a warning, she is left in the unfamiliar discomfort of your absence. A discomfort that forces her to retrace the last weeks, the last days, the last conversations, to scan through them like a detective trying to figure out the exact moment when you shifted from being always available to being completely gone. And that confusion is the beginning of regret. Because the truth is, most men ruin this by announcing their departure in dramatic fashion, giving speeches about how they're not going to be treated this way, promising they won't be back. And in doing so, they give her the satisfaction of knowing she still has your emotional energy. But when you cut off access without warning, there is no dramatic scene, no cathartic blow-up. There is only space, silence, and the realization that she has been cut off from something she took for granted. And if you execute this correctly, you don't half-do it. You don't leave one channel of communication open just in case. You don't keep watching her stories or liking her posts, because every breadcrumb you leave is a thread she can pull on to keep you in her orbit. And this move requires total disconnection, which means removing her number, muting or blocking her on social media, refusing to acknowledge her in group settings, and doing all of this without announcing it, without trying to spark jealousy, without trying to show her. Because the man who truly cuts off access is not performing for her reaction. He is simply enforcing the reality that disrespect comes with a cost, and the cost is losing him. And what makes this powerful is that you don't need to make her feel bad through words. You let the sudden absence of your attention create its own weight. And this is where stoic discipline comes in, because there will be a part of you that wants to check if she's noticed, to see if she's trying to reach out. But you resist that urge because you understand that any signal you send will water down the impact. And the solution for any man who struggles to hold this line is to fill that space immediately with pursuits that build you: physical training, business growth, skill acquisition, new social circles. Because when you cut off access and then sit in your room thinking about her, you are not cutting her off. You are simply giving her free rent in your mind. And this move only works if you remove her both from your life and from your mental space. So the moment she loses you, you are already living in a higher gear. And by the time she notices the absence fully, you are so far into your own growth that she couldn't catch up even if she tried. And the beauty of this approach is that you aren't just making her regret it. You're building a version of yourself that wouldn't tolerate her in the first place. Because the truth is, the man who cuts off access without warning once learns that he never has to explain himself again. And that changes not just his relationships with women, but the way the world treats him entirely. And if you're ready to take this deeper, to not just hear these moves, but to live them, to wire them so deeply into your mindset that no woman, no situation, no betrayal can ever pull you out of frame again, then you need to get the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men. It's linked in the comments. This is a manual you will own for life, a weapon you can return to every time you need clarity, every time you feel yourself slipping back into old habits, every time someone tries to test your boundaries. Imagine having a blueprint that doesn't just tell you what to do, but shows you how to do it step by step, grounded in principles that have outlived empires, written so you can apply them in modern relationships instantly. You will have it forever, in your pocket, in your hands. The knowledge never leaves you, and once you absorb it, neither will your power. Number 2, level up quietly. When you step away from a woman who disrespected you, the worst mistake you can make is to sit still and stew in resentment, replaying the past like it's going to change anything, because that's exactly what she expects you to do. She assumes you'll waste time thinking about her, talking about her, watching her life from a distance, while your own life freezes in place. But the man who flips the script understands that the most brutal form of closure is not a conversation, not an explanation, not even a final word. It's becoming so far ahead in life that by the time she hears your name again, you are unrecognizable from the man she once knew. And the key here is that you do it quietly, without posting every gym session, without broadcasting your next move, without announcing your hustle like you're trying to win her attention back. Because the moment you try to prove yourself to her or the world, you've already lost the point. And what makes this move deadly is the element of surprise, because silence is camouflage. It lets you grow without interference, without her knowing what you're building. And when you reappear months later, the gap between where you are and where she assumed you'd be is a chasm so wide it shocks her into reevaluating every assumption she had about you. And this transformation has to be full spectrum. Your health, your finances, your mindset, your appearance, your social presence. Because if you only upgrade one area, she can write it off as a fluke. But when she sees a complete overhaul, when the man who once reacted to her disrespect is now leaner, sharper, more confident, surrounded by people who respect him and clearly in control of his own life, she can't ignore it, even if her pride won't let her admit it out loud. And for you, the point isn't to make her crawl back. It's to become the man who never again attracts that kind of disrespect. And this requires a level of discipline most men never reach, because it means replacing every habit that kept you stagnant with habits that compound over time. Waking up earlier than you want to, lifting heavier than you thought you could, studying subjects you used to avoid, turning down distractions that used to control you. And when you live like this, not for a week, not for a month, but as a lifestyle, your life starts to reflect a standard she can't match. And the regret she feels isn't just about losing you, It's about realizing she misjudged you so completely that she let go of a man who was always destined to rise. And when you move like this, you don't need to block her to get her attention. You don't need to mention her name to mutual friends. You don't even need to look her way if you cross paths, because the change in you is the loudest statement you could ever make. And here's the part that should stick with you. The men who truly level up quietly aren't doing it with the secret hope that she will one day see them and regret it. They're doing it because they've accepted that their best revenge is living in such a way that her opinion no longer matters at all. And ironically, that's exactly what makes her notice, because people are most curious about what they can't control. And when she sees that her disrespect didn't just fail to stop you, it became the fuel that built a version of you she can no longer access. It rewrites the power dynamic forever, and in that moment, she understands what you understood the day you walked away. That you never needed her validation to win. You just needed the discipline to disappear and come back as someone she would never believe you could become. Number 3, stop explaining yourself. The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment you take back control of your life. Because every time you explain your actions, your choices, or your boundaries to someone who's already shown they don't respect you, you're not clarifying, you're negotiating your worth. And the second you enter that negotiation, you've already lost leverage, because now they're in a position to approve or disapprove of what you're doing. And when it comes to a woman who's disrespected you, explaining yourself becomes her playground. It gives her a chance to twist the narrative, minimize her actions, make you feel like you're overreacting, or worse, convince you to lower your standards so she can keep access to you without making any changes. And this is why men who truly understand value stop justifying their moves, because a man who knows where he's going doesn't need permission or applause to get there. And the reality is, when you cut her off, when you walk away, when you shift your energy elsewhere, she will often try to pull you into a conversation that starts with, "I just want to understand," but is really about reasserting her control over your decisions. And this is where most men crumble, because they think if they just explain it well enough, she'll finally get it. But she doesn't need to get it, she needs to feel it. And that's what your actions are for. And the dangerous part of explaining yourself is that it keeps you emotionally tethered to her opinion. It keeps you in the loop where her reaction matters more than your direction. And if you live like that, you'll never fully step into your own authority. So when she asks why you stopped calling, why you didn't respond, why you're distant, you don't write her an essay about her disrespect. You simply say, "I've been focused on my own path," and you leave it there. Because a man who knows his path knows that the wrong people don't need the map. And the solution for any man who struggles with this is to practice withholding unnecessary explanations in every area of life. When a friend questions your new routine, when a family member doubts your business idea, when a colleague wonders why you're no longer socializing after work, resist the urge to justify and instead let your results be your answer. Because the truth is, if someone respects you, they won't require a defense for your boundaries. And if they don't respect you, no defense will change their mind. And in relationships, this is even more critical, because women are instinctively drawn to men who move with certainty, not men who ask for validation before making a decision. And when you stop explaining, you start living in a way that says, "I trust my own judgment more than I care about your reaction." And ironically, this often draws more respect, even from the same people who once dismissed you, because they now see that you are not a man they can sway with pressure or guilt. And for the woman who disrespected you, the silence of your non-explanation becomes louder than any speech you could give, because it communicates that you're not even angry. You've simply decided she's no longer part of the conversation that is your life. And when you live like that consistently, you stop chasing understanding from the wrong people and start building a life that requires no defense, only demonstration. And that's when you realize the power you gave away every time you tried to make someone see your side, and you vow never to hand it over again. Because the man who moves without explanation is the man who's already decided his time is too valuable to waste convincing someone who never truly valued it in the first place. Number 4, redirect energy to a better circle. When you cut off a woman who disrespected you, the real test begins in what you do next, because too many men think walking away is the victory. But if you walk away and step into an empty life with no higher standards, no greater influences, and no powerful environment to fuel your growth, you haven't actually moved forward. You've just removed one problem and left space for another to take its place. And this is where the concept of redirecting your energy into a better circle becomes the game changer, because your circle shapes your identity, your habits, and your standards more than your willpower ever will. And if you keep surrounding yourself with people who think small, people who tolerate mediocrity, people who live for weekend distractions, it doesn't matter how much you talk about respect or discipline, their influence will drag you back down to the level you're trying to escape. And this is exactly why many men end up crawling back to the same disrespect they walked away from. Not because they miss her as a person, but because they miss the familiarity, they miss the comfort, and they never replaced it with something better. So the mind defaults to what it already knows. But the man who truly understands his worth knows that cutting her off is only step 1. Step 2 is finding a circle where disrespect isn't even part of the culture, a circle where the default language is building, achieving, and holding each other accountable. And this isn't about finding a group of people to vent to. It's about stepping into rooms that force you to grow. Rooms where your current excuses sound ridiculous. Rooms where your wins are celebrated, but your comfort zone is constantly under attack, and the shift is immediate. Instead of wasting mental energy wondering if she's thinking about you, you're too busy thinking about the next business move, the next fitness goal, the next skill to master. And when you operate like this, something powerful happens. The people you left behind can feel the shift. They can see you're no longer orbiting the same conversations, the same spaces, the same patterns. And for the woman who once had access to you, this is devastating, because she realizes not only did she lose you, but she lost you to a reality she can't even enter. And she sees you surrounded by people who value you, not because they're trying to get something from you, but because your presence aligns with their mission. Most women will never regret losing a man simply because he leaves, but they will regret losing a man who leaves and thrives in a world that makes her irrelevant. And the only way to create that world is to deliberately put yourself in the company of people who are already living at that level. So the practical step here is to audit your circle immediately. Cut dead weight without hesitation. Seek out environments that make you uncomfortable in a way that forces growth, and invest in those relationships the same way you used to invest in chasing validation. Because when you give your best energy to the right people, you multiply it instead of draining it, and over time, you stop even thinking about proving anything to the woman who disrespected you, because the life you're building makes her opinion, her presence, and her memory completely irrelevant. And that's when the regret for her is permanent. Not because you told her she lost something valuable, but because she's watching you live in a circle where she was never worthy to stand in the first place. Number 5. Show zero emotional recoil. When you've been disrespected, especially by a woman who once smiled in your face, laughed at your jokes, and acted like you mattered to her, the instinct is to show her you're hurt, to let your tone sharpen, to let your face harden, to let your words carry the weight of your anger. Because part of you wants her to see the damage she caused. Part of you thinks that if she sees you upset, she'll finally understand the depth of what she did. But the reality is that showing her that emotional spike doesn't make her respect you more. It makes her feel powerful. It confirms to her that she still controls how you feel. And the brutal truth is that in her mind, if she can still trigger your emotions, she still owns a piece of you, which is why the most devastating thing you can do in that moment is to remain unmoved, not cold in the sense of acting like you don't care when you do, but steady in a way that makes it impossible for her to read you. And this isn't about pretending. It's about genuinely refusing to give someone the satisfaction of seeing that they can reach inside you and pull on your emotions like puppet strings. And this skill, this level of self-control, is rare because it requires you to separate your reaction from your reality. It forces you to respond to disrespect, not with fire, but with stillness. Not because you're weak, but because you're untouchable. And when you operate at that level, you become the kind of man who cannot be provoked into lowering his standard just to prove a point. And that drives people, especially those who thrive on emotional chaos, absolutely mad. Because they feed off drama, they rely on you to break character so they can point and say, "See, you're no better than me." But when you refuse to break, when you don't raise your voice, when you don't throw back petty insults, when you don't even let your facial expression shift, you send a message that hits deeper than any argument. You have no control here, and the woman who once thought she could disrespect you and still keep your attention is now left with the realization that she can't even get a rise out of you, and that's when the regret begins to eat at her, because she understands that in your mind she no longer exists as someone whose opinion can influence you, and for you, this shift is transformative beyond relationships. When you master the ability to show zero emotional recoil, you start applying it in business negotiations, in family disputes, in any scenario where someone tries to manipulate you through your feelings, and you find that the less you react, the more control you have. Because people can't play a game with someone who refuses to pick up the pieces. And if you want to build this ability, you start by slowing everything down. You train yourself to pause before speaking. You control your breathing when confronted. You focus on the outcome you want instead of the feeling you have in the moment. And when you make this your default, your power compounds. Because over time, people learn that trying to get under your skin is a waste of their time. And for the woman who disrespected you, that lesson is permanent. Because she realizes you didn't just walk away. You walked away without leaving her a single emotional footprint to cling to. And that kind of exit is unforgettable. It haunts her, not with anger, but with emptiness. Because there's nothing for her to work with, nothing for her to twist, nothing for her to respond to. Only the unshakable reality that the man she thought she could break has moved beyond her reach forever. If you take nothing else from this, understand this. Life will keep handing you the same disrespect until you decide you've had enough, until you draw a line so sharp it can't be crossed, until you stop giving second chances to people who would never give you one. And the fastest way to lock this into your bones is to arm yourself with the Stoic relationship blueprint for men. The exact guide that turns these principles into daily habits so you never slip back into weakness again. It's the unfiltered truth that will harden your mindset, sharpen your standards, and make you immune to the manipulations that keep most men trapped for years. You'll have it for life. A resource you can open any time you feel tested. A voice that reminds you who you are when the world tries to make you forget. It's linked in the comments right now, but it won't be available forever, because this level of truth isn't meant for everyone. If you're ready to step into this reality and never hand your power over again, comment "I'm untouchable" like this video and subscribe so more men can find these truths and save themselves years of regret. Thanks for watching.